All right, we have some big breaking news out of the WNBA where Indiana Fever star Caitlin Clark is going to be sidelined for at least 2 weeks. The All-Star point guard is dealing with a strained left quad, which was first aggravated in training camp and will be reevaluated in 14 days. Caitlin Clark currently averaging 19 points per game, which is tied for 8th in the W, also a league-leading 9.3 assists. Based on the Fever's timeline, Clark will miss at least 4 games. All right, let's welcome in our basketball analyst, Erica Ayala. Erica, this is some pretty big news. Caitlin Clark, she's going to be out for 2 weeks here at a minimum. So how can the Indiana Fever survive this stretch without their all-star point guard in Caitlin Clark?
Well, it's just the next player up. Caitlin Clark right now is the leading point scorer for the Indiana Fever. She's running the offense. She and Aaliyah Boston, as well as Kelsey Mitchell, have been getting a lot of chemistry, being able to get things moving and inflow for this Indiana Fever squad. That being said, you're going to look to Boston. She's your second best option offensively, probably looking maybe for Sydney Colson, who's a veteran that was brought into this team to take some minutes here. But also there's another player that I'm looking to, and that's DeWanna Bonner. We heard from Stephanie White. I was able to be at that Indiana Fever game where they hosted the New York Liberty, and Stephanie White, who coached DeWanna Bonner, a 6-time WNBA All-Star at Connecticut, wants to get her all-star more involved in the offense. She talked about the Connecticut offense being much slower, not as much in pace as this Indiana Fever offense, and that means you have to set some plays and put DeWanna Bonner in positions to score. She is a little bit of a hybrid wing. She's got great height, but she plays on that wing. And so it's going to be curious to see if this is the moment where Stephanie White just recalibrates the offense a little bit and gets Bonner more involved.
Yeah, and we saw it in the season opener. Bonner was kind of making a strong case of being one of the best offseason acquisitions for the Fever and just in the W in general. So we'll see if that can get going. As mentioned a little bit earlier, Erica, this strained left quad that was first aggravated in training camp and now fast forward to a couple of games into the season. Have you noticed maybe some effects of this injury in season with Caitlin Clark since it first, started bothering her during the preseason?
Honestly, no. Again, I was at that Fever game. They took on the New York Liberty. Caitlin Clark had a fantastic game, and it came right down to the wire. And I didn't see any ill effects there. Now, we do know that the New York Liberty, they played her very solid defensively. Took her a little while to get in rhythm, but she was there towards the end of the game. I, unfortunately, know a lot about quad injuries, even in my, pedestrian lifestyle, no longer a Division I athlete. I still have quad issues. They're not fun to deal with, and sometimes you just need a little bit of rest. So hopefully that's what this is. Again, the timeline takes her right after that game, a rematch of this season against the Chicago Sky, which is on CBS. So we're not expecting to see Caitlin Clark in that game, but that will have her ready, if the timeline stays true, to take on Atlanta, and then again to be ready for the New York Liberty. All of those are Commissioner's Cups games. That is the in-season tournament for the WNBA, and of course the Indiana Fever in the Eastern Conference. Those are going to be big games for them in June. So they want to get Clark back, but of course you want to have her healthy in what they hope will be a nice run in the postseason.
Yeah, so Erica, I know it's very, very early on in the season, right? The Fever are sitting right around 500, 4 games in. Of course, we're already talking about the MVP race when it has to do with Caitlin Clark, right? So she was the favorite. Now she has the second best odds behind Napheesa Collier. How much time can she afford to miss and still be in that conversation? And again, I know this is early. We're, 4 games into the season for the Fever. But when she was the MVP favorite in that conversation, it's something we have to think about.
Yeah, that's such an interesting conversation, because 4 games in the grand scheme of things, this is actually the longest WNBA season. You don't think it's too long, but then you do have players like Napheesa Collier, who has already been in kind of mid-season stride here, where with the Indiana Fever and specifically Caitlin Clark, I think what we want to see from Clark is just a little bit more of a give and take between taking her shot and facilitating. We know she can be an expert passer. You've already already mentioned that she's leading the league right now in assists, so she's a great facilitator for this Indiana Fever squad. But with so many new pieces, that takes time. And sometimes you have to learn those things in the flow of a game, not just in a practice. So I do think it can have an impact. I will say Collier was my favorite going in. So that being said, when Caitlin Clark comes back healthy, yes, she's going to be going up against Nafisa Collier, even maybe a Jonquel Jones, and of course, Asia Wilson. That being said, if she can get back healthy, get back into rhythm, and the Indiana Fever can get a little bit more comfortable in their offense, I don't see why she can't continue to make a strong push and a strong case for an individual award like MVP.
Erica, we certainly appreciated joining us for that breaking news here on HQ, where Caitlin Clark is going to miss at least 2 weeks because of a quad strain. And getting a look at the upcoming schedule here, if that does stay true, that timetable right now that puts Caitlin Clark out for when the Fever play Angel Reese in the Sky on June 7th. That is on CBS. Expected to return as of now against the Dream on June 10th.